Hello friends, this is the last video that I'm ever going to make with white eyeballs. I'm having my eyeballs tattooed tomorrow and I'm very excited about it. Eyeball tattoos are a relatively recent thing, with the first procedures being performed in 2007. And of the first 3 human beings to have their eyeballs tattooed, only one of them is still alive. The other 2 died from things that are unrelated to the eyeball procedure. So while there is no long-term data proving the sort of safety and durability of this procedure, there is a growing sort of body of evidence to support its relative safety, provided the procedure is performed by a professional who knows what they're doing and has experience, obviously, performing this procedure. Tattooing eyeballs is not like tattooing skin. A conventional tattoo machine is not used for this procedure. A syringe with a very fine needle is used to perforate the outer membrane of the eyeball and to deposit ink underneath that outer membrane, where it sort of pools and bubbles up and then over a period of time dissipates and moves around underneath the surface of the eye. Why tattoo the eyeballs? Why tattoo the skin? Why get a haircut? Why brush your teeth? Why get out of bed in the morning? You know, why do anything? Why not, dude? You know, the appeal for me is twofold. Firstly, aesthetically, I think that it is quite a striking and beautiful modification. I think that it can look really stunning, particularly on people with darker complexion, with olive and brown skin. On the more extreme end of the spectrum, people that color their sclera black. I think that the black sclera on people with non-white skin just looks exquisite. I think it looks stunning. For people with more fair complexion, having black sclera is particularly extreme. I think the contrast against pale skin, against fair skin, is extreme and can look quite sort of demonic. And in fact, are some of the, and no shade, fuck, people do whatever you want to do, whatever you're into, fuck man, knock yourself out. But for me, I would like to go for a smoky sort of a grey colour. Black is just a little bit too extreme. Mind you, I'm not a particularly colourful person. It would be very out of character for me to get like purple or fucking bright blue or yellow or whatever. And again, no shade. If that's what you're into, if that's what you've got, then fucking knock yourself out. I think somewhere in the middle there, sort of something dark and monochrome would suit my kind of like aesthetic, I guess. And the second reason is to gift this to myself. I don't do things for myself very often, and acts of sort of self-love and self-care look different for everybody. And some people want to run a bath and put some rose petals in there and jump in there with your scented candles. And if that's you, I can enjoy. But it's not really for me, I've always found baths to be a little bit weird and uncomfortable. I'm 6'3", so like my knees are in my ears and half my body's out of the fucking water. It gets cold in about 3 minutes, and then you're sort of sitting there steeping in your own fucking filth. I've never really understood the appeal. But hey, if you're a bath gal or guy, then fuck, awesome. Good for you. Body mods, or any real alteration that we make to our appearance, is a way that we can have a little bit of control about how we present to the world. This is a slippery slope, and it's something that I am quite conflicted about, to be honest. Because on the one hand, acting and signaling to one another is so exhausting and so disingenuous in a lot of ways, and we all do it. How we dress is a signal on our haircut, and what sort of car we drive, and what sort of shoes we wear, even what we eat, and in so many ways what we're doing is just signaling to the people around us, who we are and what we're about, and signaling our worth and our value and our status and so on. And I guess it's essential in some ways, and it's primordial. Primates do this shit too, but it's exhausting. And I guess behind all of that, I'm really fascinated by transcendent wisdom traditions that try to crack the code and see what is behind all of those layers, and see what the essence of being really is, and what it really means what it really feels like to be aware and to be a conscious being. And if you take that pursuit seriously, then all of this signaling just becomes fucking theater, And it's And yes, it's trivial and exhausting, but at the same time, I'm playing that game. You know, I'm playing that game. I'm presenting in the way that I do and making alterations to the way that I appear. And so, on the one hand, you know, there is that signaling element, but on the other hand, I feel as though this process that I'm engaged with is a process of removing layers of distortion to help to reveal to me and to the rest of the world what I am exactly, and you know what I'm growing into. It's very empowering. You know, I'm somebody who has a long history of body image issues and just a general lack of comfort with how I look and the body that I'm in, and so I don't see any of the sort of good qualities or redeeming qualities. I just sort of see and feel imperfections and things that I wish were different and whatnot. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I guarantee you, almost every person feels this way, you know. And I don't know why. You know, this is a fucking culture for you, whatever. But the process of making permanent alterations to my appearance is incredibly empowering, and I actually love my body more now than I ever have. But yeah, this process is empowering. It's been a very, very interesting process to engage with. And so to be moving into this next phase, making the decision to tattoo my eyeballs is something that I'm really, really excited about. And will there be social ramifications? Almost certainly. Will there be people who find it very distasteful and judgy or whatever? Almost certainly. But do I care about those people and their opinions about me? Not even a little bit. And are their opinions relevant? Or will their opinions affect me and how I feel about myself or the way that I navigate through the human experience? Certainly not. So, you know, what do I care if it weirds people out? I don't. But I think it's cool, and so I'm gonna fucking do it, you know? So anyway, there's a lot there. I don't know what I'll edit this down into, but I'm going to wrap it up here and then jump on a plane tomorrow, go to this place and do this thing and have my eyeballs tattooed, and then come back and finish this video. So I will see you very shortly. Well, that was fucking awesome. And check out these little peepers.
Wow!
This procedure was performed for me by a very renowned tattooist and body mod artist that travels the world and does guest spots at different studios around the place. A friend of mine had made a booking to have his leg tattooed, and I decided to get on board and have my eyes done. It was a really cool adventure. We took flight to a location and hired a vehicle and spent a couple of hours on a little road trip out to the studio. And that's where we stayed for a few days, which was just fucking awesome. Hanging out and meeting the artists and shooting shit, talking about the industry, talking about the game, and there's a lot to discuss. You know, this is tattooing and body modification and these kind of practices or rituals are fascinating to me, and clearly to these other people as well. So it was really fun to be in the company of other people who share that interest. It felt a little bit more maybe intimate than just walking into a studio and having work performed by an artist in that kind of environment and then paying your bill and leaving again. The opportunity to kind of hang out and relate made this experience sort of unique and quite special, really. So we spent a couple of days hanging out at the studio, which is tucked away in the woods in a kind of remote location, which is really cool to be sort of tucked away. It almost felt like a bit of a retreat. Having the opportunity to settle into the space is really cool. It enriches the experience. It gives it a little bit more body and a little bit more sort of qualitative substance. I think I really like the idea of ritual and of making things meaningful. And I mean, because this is the thing. Nothing means anything unless we give it meaning, right? And so it's cool to, for me anyway, to go into these experiences and to sit and to feel what that space feels like and to feel what those people feel like. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So we arrived sort of late in the afternoon, but we had time to get acquainted. We ate together and chatted a little bit and then retired for the evening. And the following morning, it was game day. I hadn't experienced any fear or apprehension around getting my eyeballs tattooed up until game day, when I'm in the studio chatting with the guy, looking at the needles, and realizing that in a few short moments I was going to be having ink injected into my eyeballs and permanently altering my appearance forever, and an enormous wave of fear came over me, which is very exciting. It's not often that I feel scared. And that's not tough guy talk, that's just the facts. Nothing really scares me. I'm a 187 centimeter white male. I'm the top of the food chain. We won. Do you know what I mean? There's just not much that makes me feel threatened. So seeking out experiences that scare me is is kind of fun, and because they're kind of rare. This is what motivates human beings to do some more of our more interesting and unusual behaviors, like adrenaline sports and like weird body modifications and different things like that. That explorative nature, that explorative impulse that seeks the unknown and that seeks uncharted territory, that seeks novelty. It's very exciting, and it was actually kind of refreshing to feel scared. The last time I felt fear like that was moments before the most intense heartbreak experience of my life, when I realized what was happening, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was absolutely terrifying, and this is a very, very different sort of context. But then the feeling my heart rate elevate and my body temperature rise, and I'm sort of starting to perspire a little bit, and then I was instructed to lay down and get ready because, it's on. I was invited to put some music on. I just played some very, very chill kind of meditative music. These motherfuckers are crazy. When they're tattooing, they play hectic, high energy sort of music, and create this container of intensity, where there's this intense, brutal sort of approach to tattooing going on. And these motherfuckers are fighting for their lives and playing fucking, intense music, which is amazing, and I sort of love that we can create these environments to like voluntarily subject ourselves to that kind of intensity, and all the stimulus and all this energy, and then survive it. It is just such a fascinating process. But in this instance, it was just myself and the artist that I was working with. And I did actually ask if he would object if I had a friend film this procedure, and he said he would rather not, and that for eyeballs particularly, he takes this very seriously, and so it's his preference to just have the two of us in the room, himself and the person who he's working with, and no recording, and taking quite seriously, and I totally get that. I lay down. And the instruction was to pick a point to focus on and don't stop focusing on that point. So the idea is to shift the eyeball in one direction and lock it in there so that the injection can come in from the other direction, perforate that outer membrane of the eyeball, deposit the ink and saline solution, and then get out. And then you're able to sort of blink and move your eyes around and whatever. Obviously, it's imperative that eyeball does not move from that location when the needle is going in. Any sort of movement or anything can result in an accident, scratching the surface of the eyeball, or worse. So that was paramount. Pick a spot to look, and don't look away from that spot. This is I was shitting it at this point. Yeah, it's quite. I was very scared, and so I picked a spot and I locked in. The blink reflex is an autonomic response. There's really nothing you can do about it. If somebody goes to put something in your eye, you're going to blink. So an effort is made to hold the eyeball open. And so when I'm looking in one direction, my artist was holding my eyeball open and coming in from that other direction. But as soon as the body senses something coming towards the eye, then you have this flinch response and this blink response and so on. And, and it is intense, man. And so I was shitting it, and what the scary part was? I could feel a little bit of a tremble in his hand with holding the syringe. That was fucking crazy. But so clearly, it's an intense and sensitive moment for the artist as well. Obviously, it's interesting when the needle goes in. You can feel pressure, and you can feel that outer membrane of the eye perforate. And then your vision sort of doubles for a second, because if you've ever pushed on one of your eyeballs, you get some weird kind of coloration, your vision doubles, and then, which is fucking terrifying. And then when the ink goes in and the needle comes out, it's not uncommon for there to be a little bit of spillage with ink and saline around the eyeball. So when ink goes over the the pupil, then you can sort of lose vision in that eye for a second. And obviously, when you've just had a needle pushed in your eye and then your vision sort of blacks out, that's a bit of a time, friends. That's fucking exciting. But this is all explained to me prior that this is to be expected, and that I'm not going blind. This is just the nature of the procedure. But after that first injection went in, my fear went away. It was done then, I'd only had one injection at that point, but I sort of moved beyond that point of no return. Okay, so I'm leaving here with tattooed eyes. That's what's happening. So the procedure is quite brief. There was, I believe, 4 injections in each eye. I think an attempt is made to put an injection to the left and to the right and to the top and to the bottom of the iris, in both eyes, obviously. And so after each injection, there's a little bit of an opportunity to sort of blink and swirl your eyes, and the area is washed with saline to get rid of any sort of excess ink and so on. And that's it. It is really quick. The whole procedure lasted maybe 10 to 15 minutes tops. That's including the briefing. So I mean, it is in and out. It's not a laborious or painstaking sort of experience. And the injections are painless. They're painless. There is sensation associated with that process, but it's not a sensation that I would call pain. There's certainly pressure, and you can feel the needle perforating the outer membrane of the eye, and there's a feeling of pressure when the ink and the saline goes in, but it's not a sensation that I would call pain. The recovery, however, is quite uncomfortable, and there is a little bit of pain associated with the recovery, but more what I would call discomfort. So obviously the eyeballs have just been injected with ink and saline. Underneath that outer membrane of the eye, that ink is still moving around. It's migrating and it's settling. So if you can imagine pouring pancake mix into a hot pan, how it sort of clumps and then it sort of spreads out. If you can imagine the same sort of thing going on the surface of the eye, or perhaps a nice way of imagining it is if you were to pour pancake mix in between 2 panes of glass and then squish the glass down together, you would see that mix just dissipate. So that's what's happening underneath the outer membrane of the eye. And obviously, I don't know why this is news to me, but it doesn't just stop at the front of the eye. It goes all the way around the back, so that ink is migrating all the way around. And depending on what color or colors are used, then those colors will begin to mix. 2 colors went into my eyes, a sort of a light gray color and a little bit of black as well. The idea was to try to achieve a sort of a dark gray, kind of stormy, marble-y type of effect. But really, once that ink goes in, there's no guarantee how it's going to land. It's really in God's hands then. The ink is going to move around and do its thing, and so where it finally lands is really beyond anybody's control. But for that initial period of time, there's a lot of pressure in the eyes, intraocular pressure. So there is foreign material inside of the underneath the outer membrane of the eye, and there is sensation associated with that. Does it affect your vision? Not exactly. My vision was shitty, but it was I didn't go blind. My vision went shitty for a period of time, and I could actually see shadow lines on my periphery where the sclera was actually swollen up above the level of my iris. So to look at my eyeball, it was not a smooth surface. That sclera area was bulbous because obviously there was ink and saline swirling around underneath there. So I could actually see shadow lines in my periphery where that was happening. That was a weird sensation. That was pretty fucking strange, not gonna lie. And that swelling, it's a shitty feeling. It's a shitty sensation. It sort of feels like kind of being hungover, or remember when you were a kid and you'd swim in really chlorinated pools for hours and then you get out and your eyes would be fucking fucked and you could hardly open them? It was a little bit like that. Well, it was a lot like that actually. But pain, not so much. A little bit of that intraocular pressure does cause that there is like a bit of an achy sensation. To the eyeballs are tender to push on them. They sort of feel a little bit bruised or something. And there's like a kind of a bit of a headachy type of sensation. Minor though, really, minor. It was uncomfortable, but it was not excruciating. So my mate decided to jump in then and get his leg tattooed, and that was a very full-on and intense tattoo experience for him. And I crept into the studio on a couple of occasions and sort of tried to witness what was going on with my swollen eyeballs. And sweet Lord, he was fighting for his life. It was a very, very intense session. I'll get permission from him, and if he's cool, I'll chuck a little bit of that footage into this video just so you get an idea of the intensity. but I'm also very, very mindful of everybody's anonymity, and even seeing the tattoo might be a little bit too much information. So we'll see. I'll find out. There's a feeling of having the lens of the eye scratched. So if you've ever had a splinter in your eye, or if you've ever scratched the surface of your eye, you would know that that sensation is very, very uncomfortable. Again, it's not what I would consider pain, but it is very, very uncomfortable. And obviously each eyeball has just had 4 injection points. So there are 4 spots on the eye that have been irritated, and that you can feel when you blink. And it's a kind of discomfort where I don't know if it was nicer to keep my eyes open or closed. Both sort of felt kind of shitty, and sort of ink will discharge from those entry points just a little bit, just weep out of those entry points. So it was the case that I was getting a little bit of ink accumulating on the inside of my eyes. And interestingly enough, I was blowing ink out of my nose. My nose is running a lot, and I think whatever was happening with my tear ducts were tearing a lot, and those tears were not coming out of my eyeballs, probably because of the swelling, I imagine. Now, I'm not a fucking eye doctor. I don't know how this shit works, but I was having a look at some sort of like exploded images of how the tear duct and the sinus and eustachian tube and all that sort of stuff kind of works together. And I think it's plausible that the swelling from my eyes was not allowing tears to come externally, so those tears were trickling down the back of my throat, and it's like I could taste eye drops when I was putting the saline eye drops in. I could taste them down the back of my throat, and then when I blew my nose, ink was coming out. So I think it's possible that any ink that was discharging from those entry points could have been sort of migrating down through my tear ducts, and I was blowing it out my nose. So that was unusual, but still pretty cool, kind of fascinating. Day 2 was a little bit different. It was like the swelling in my eyeballs had gone down somewhat, but my eyelids had just turned into marshmallows. Like I could barely open my eyes. My eyelids are extremely swollen. It looks like I was having an allergic reaction of some sort. Yeah, not hot. It was pretty weird. And so I was just sort of bumping ibuprofen, 4th hourly or whatever, and trying to stay on top of that. There was nothing about that swelling that was unusual considering what had just happened. Like the guys that were monitoring me were not alarmed by that. They were just keeping a close eye and making sure everything was sort of cruising along okay. So day 2 was kind of fucked. I could see, but it was difficult to open my eyes. They just felt like shit. Like I had fucking sand or broken glass in them or something. Again, not painful. This wasn't excruciating, but uncomfortable. Getting shit in your eyes is uncomfortable. My friend was getting some more work done on his leg that day, so I spent most of the day kind of hanging out and chatting with some of the crew there and poking my head into the studio and watching my friend as he was getting brutalized. I'm pretty sure I saw his soul leave his body at one point, but there was another person in the studio getting some tattoo done as well. Just a completely different approach though. One of the guys was on a fucking monster rotary machine with a big old, I think he was using like a 15 mag needle. 25? What was it? I think it was a 25. And just shoveling ink into this fucking poor bastard's leg. Meanwhile, the other person getting tattooed was just getting some dot work done with a little lithium pen machine, just gently dotting work, tapping around. So it was interesting to see that contrast. Dot work guy was curled up, getting into a little bit of a sleepy meditative state, and my friend who was getting torn apart was in worlds of hurt. He was just it was fascinating to see that kind of contrast. So this art form, it presents in many different ways, and there's a lot of different ways of tattooing, and there's a lot of different ways of receiving tattoo. So it's just a fascinating world. I really I can't get enough of it. It's really, really fascinating. So at the end of day 2, my friend's leg was complete, or complete for this stage anyway. He'd sort of hit his threshold, and the piece had been closed up to a point where it was done. But there's always a to be continued. So that was quite an ordeal for him, and it was an interesting thing to watch. So while he was sort of going into shock and trying not to pass out, yeah, we had a nice sort of like a dinner and a wind down, and another opportunity to chat and just sort of hang, which is again really really lovely. It didn't feel transactional in the way that a lot of sort of studio experiences can. The opportunity to hang and relate is important. You know, it was a very sort of human experience, and I enjoyed that aspect of it very much. And I'm really grateful for the crew for opening up that space and inviting their clients to come in and sort of share that experience. I think that's quite special. So I hadn't really considered how this would affect the people that care about me. When I got home and sent an image to a friend, her response was shock and concern. She revealed to me that she'd actually had a little bit of a cry and was worried about me. Then I got the same response from my brother, actually, who that was sort of his first question is like, "This is kind of extreme. Are you okay?" And that caught me off guard a little bit. I didn't expect that kind of response. I expected like a bit of shock and a bit of eyebrow raising, but I didn't expect that these people would be worried about me in that way. These are people that are aware of my sort of mental health struggles over the years, so it's not entirely unusual that they would ask, like, "Are you doing okay?" You know, they'll check in with me. But I reassured them that I'm totally okay and I'm better than I've been in a long time, and I'm fucking thrilled to bits about this experience. And that put them at ease, and I think they're all cool and they're all sort of happy for me, even if they're not entirely comfortable with this situation. But honestly, this is the thing, right? It's not even that shocking, really. It's 2024. Nothing surprises anybody anymore. For people who know me, it's going to take about 10 minutes to get used to, and then you won't even see it anymore, and we'll all get on with our lives. It's been 6 days since my eyes were injected, and they're feeling pretty good. I would say I'm sort of 95% back to normal. I'm still experiencing a little bit of intraocular pressure when I lean forward, and I can still just feel a little bit of irritation on the surface of my eyes when I blink, but otherwise they're feeling good as gold. And my vision is perfect, and I'm not really experiencing any other side effects. So, huge win. What a relief. The color is changing. Day to day, the color changes subtly. So the first few days, ink is on the move, and those colors are mixing, and there's a little bit of variation. Now things are starting to settle, but there's still a little bit of variation from day to day, and I expect that will probably continue for a week or even longer until things really sort of settle. I can see that the surface of my eye's lens in most places is stuck back down to the eyeball, but there's still a couple of places where that surface membrane is still just a little bit ripply, which would suggest it hasn't adhered back down to the surface of my eye. This isn't really causing me any discomfort, but it's something that's interesting to monitor and to see how long that process takes before the eyeball heals. I decided to wait until after I had this procedure done to really do a deep dive on the possible negative outcomes, and there are many. I mean, clearly there's risk. You're sticking needles in your fucking eye. Of course there's risk. I'm super stoked with the result. It didn't take long at all before I began to recognize my reflection as my own, and it's still very much a novelty to sort of check and see what my eyes are doing each day, and to watch that sort of color change and move. I'm really happy with the result, and I'm just going to heal these up and see if my mum cries. I may or may not film her reaction, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see her reaction on video, and I'll film it. It'll be fucking hilarious. So that's it for my eyeball tattoo experience. It was fucking awesome. I met some cool people, overcame an enormous wave of fear, which is always fun and empowering, and now I have a very, very interesting new adaptation to get used to, and a new version of myself to meet and present to the world. So that's fucking really exciting. If you've made it this far in the video, then thanks very much for watching. I hope this has been interesting and enlightening, or has maybe satisfied some curiosity that you might have had around this procedure. And as usual, be cool, be kind, and go fuck yourself. Peace. So, eyeball tattoos. Fuck. What the fuck? What are you doing? What's up with that? Shut the fuck up. Which is, fuck, dude. And the second reason, what was the second reason again? That was shitty.